Hello and welcome back to the Bloom and Well podcast. I am Dr. Mackenzie, and today we're going to be taking a dive into the freeze response. So, talking about exhaustion, burnout, apathy. If you are someone who is experiencing burnout and nervous system dysregulation and feeling broken or feeling lazy or hearing my cat crying in the background, this video is going to explain how your freeze state is a protective state and not a flaw. Okay, it's not about actually being broken or actually being lazy. So we're going to talk about how that freeze state forms and talk about some baby steps that we can take to gently reawaken that nervous system. So if you don't know, I was in a very deep freeze state about 2 years ago and was bedridden, and it was a very difficult time. So I do understand how debilitating it can be to be in a freeze state. Especially when you have tons of diagnoses and you're seeing tons of doctors and no one's giving you real answers and you're just kind of bouncing around the system, right? If you ever feel like you just can't, right? Even the simple things. You can't get out of bed. You can't get up and start your day. You can't reply to a text. You can't listen to that voicemail. You can't make a decision because you're feeling so overwhelmed and it all feels impossible, even the littlest things. Again, it's not necessarily because you're lazy. You may be in that freeze state. So in these freeze states, we often start to feel very numb, very apathetic. We can get a lot of brain fog because blood flow is decreasing in the brain because our body doesn't think that it's super important to take care of certain processes. So you might forget why you walked into a room, forget what you were trying to text someone, right? You might feel very disconnected even if you're sitting next to someone and having a conversation. You might have extreme fatigue. Maybe for me, like my arms and legs felt so heavy, like they were made of lead, like I could barely pick them up. And that was a constant state for me, right? And you might also feel very cold. Again, it might differ for everybody. For me, my core was always really hot, but my extremities were really cold. At least in the early stages when I was still in that freeze state before I started kind of waking up my system and getting things going. So that freeze state essentially happens as a part of your nervous system's stress response. Your body is constantly scanning your environment for any sign of stress. Once that system gets triggered in some way, whether it's a real threat or a perceived threat, it activates the stress response. Some people may be triggered into a fight response, some into a flight, some into freeze. Some people, might have a different response depending on what the situation is, what the threat they're facing is. If you're in that fight or flight state when your body is perceiving some type of threat or danger, that is a mobilization. That is your body saying, hey, let's move and take care of this, or hey, let's move and get away from it. The alternative is the freeze state. So the freeze state is like the emergency brake, right? When your brain and body have assessed the situation so much that it thinks, oh man, okay, we can't escape this. What are we going to do? Right? So it freezes up. It's trying to protect itself. So you might feel really detached or dissociative in that moment, which is why when some traumatic experiences happen, people might not remember them very well or even at all, right? That's the brain trying to protect itself. You might feel very numb emotionally. It may feel like you're watching your life from the outside, maybe like you're almost not even in your body, or your senses feel very desensitized, right? They're very dimmed out. It might be hard to do things, to initiate tasks, to make decisions, even ones that you want to do, even things that make you feel happy or feel good to do, especially when it makes you feel like you're shut down and cut off from the world once you experience some stress. So essentially that freeze state happens when your body says, I don't know how to fight. I am not sure I can outrun this. So I'll be as still as I can until it feels safe again. And that is exactly what happened to me for almost a year. So I want you to know that you don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to suffer the way that I did. That is my ultimate goal with my website, with these videos, with everything that I do on here. My goal is to not let anyone suffer the way that I did for so long, right? Because it is unnecessary, right? I think it's a lack of us knowing how our body responds and knowing how to take care of it when it's trying to protect us, right? Okay, so let's briefly talk about how people end up in the freeze state in the first place, right? Because it's very often misunderstood. So a lot of people on the outside tend to think that the freeze state is laziness, and it's not. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of motivation or drive. It is literally a nervous system that has been overwhelmed so intensely for so long that it's trying to conserve its energy and save itself. So some things that might lead to that can be chronic stress with no relief. So if your body is staying in that fight or flight mode without any real recovery, which that recovery mode is the parasympathetic state, it starts to shut down a lot of major functions in the body, right? So if you've powered through work, if you've been a caretaker for a long time, a chronic people pleaser, or you're just surviving for so long that your system said, hey, I can't keep going at this pace. Hey, I need to slow down. That's when that freeze state steps in. And sometimes that can look like chronic constipation because the blood flow to the digestive tract gets shunted to other areas, right? It can look like a slowed heart rate. So it can also happen with unprocessed trauma or emotional overload. So if you've been going through a lot of emotionally difficult times, especially without a solid support system, you may have learned to kind of numb out or disconnect those emotions and trauma in order to get through it. And while that's a great thing in the moment because your brain is trying to protect you, again, long term, that's where we start to see some problems and the freeze state arise. So this is really true when we are trying to experience and sort through and process huge emotions like grief and anger or fear. But if our nervous systems and our brains and our bodies don't feel safe enough to express them, our nervous system may have said, hey, feeling this is too much for me, so let's just not. Right. And again, that's not failure. It's a survival mechanism. It's a survival response. So also, if you're feeling trapped, whether physically or emotionally, that freeze state is really common when you can't physically or emotionally escape a scenario. It might look like growing up in a home where speaking isn't safe. Maybe being a caregiver when you don't have time to take care of yourself. Or living with a chronic illness or health trauma where your doctors didn't listen to you, or your nurses maybe gave you the wrong medication, or your needs were not met or were ignored. Maybe if you were enduring emotional, physical, or medical situations where you just had to get through it, right? When your body can't fight or flight, when your body can't fight or run, it freezes. And again, it's a protective mechanism. So that freeze state often follows a total overwhelm. And that's kind of like your body's last line of defense. So when it's tried everything else, the worrying, the over planning, the pushing through, the lashing out, right? And none of it brought relief. That's when it kind of just implodes and collapses inward. And in that state, you might feel that numbness, like nothing matters. Why am I even trying? Why even be here? Why even exist? Like you're stuck in mud, you're moving in slow motion, you're just spinning your tires and you're disconnected from yourself, you're disconnected from the world. I think that one thing that was huge for my recovery journey personally was understanding that my body chose this state to help me survive. Something that was so overwhelming, it thought it couldn't handle it. And so instead of fighting that numbness or fighting that freeze state, honoring it, right? Thanking the body, thanking the nervous system, saying, hey, thank you so much for trying to protect me. And when you're ready, we can thaw this out and we can work through it and we can, get back to our life. One baby step that we can take to gently move out of that chronic freeze state is orienting. So when you feel like you're starting to go into that implosion and you feel like you're starting to get triggered and go into that freeze state and that maybe that dissociative state, looking around the room and naming 5 things that you can see. Okay, so I see a lamp. I see my monitor. I see some scissors. I see my mic. I see a glass of water, right? And then 4 things that you can touch. I can touch my computer mouse. I can touch the desk. I can touch the fabric of my dress. I can touch my hair. And then 3 things that you can hear. So I can currently hear the AC, and I can also currently hear my PC, which is struggling. Okay? And then 2 things that you can smell. So it's allergy season here. I'm going to be honest. I personally can't smell anything. But you'll name 2 things that you can smell. And then 1 thing that you can feel inside your body. So right now, I might feel some tightness in my pecs, right? And my chest muscles. They're a little tight right now. Okay. Just acknowledge it, right? It's not about hyperfixating it, focusing on it, and thinking it's the end of the world, because that is something that I definitely did when I was in that freeze state. Every little thing my body felt, I panicked, right? Moving out of that freeze state requires acknowledging your body because your body's talking to you. All those little symptoms, that's your body talking to you. It's not about pushing through them. It's not about snapping out of it. Loving the body, acknowledging what's happening, thanking the body for trying to protect you. And I know that's probably not going to land well with a lot of people, because when I was deep in a freeze state, I assure you it did not land well with me. Okay. I will be honest. It took me probably a year before I started to really understand that. The key to getting out of that freeze state is also slowness, gentleness, grace. So you don't have to leap into action. You just have to notice what's going on and offer your nervous system little cues of safety, 1 step at a time. Guys, freeze is not a flaw. It is your body saying, hey, I have been through so much. I need to shut down. But you are allowed to feel again. You're allowed to soften, and it is safe to slowly come back into your body and slowly come back to life, right? Kind of like we experience every single year. We have these seasons. It's like your body is just kind of stuck in that winter, right? So we need to gently help encourage it so that it moves into spring. Try the orienting practice either tonight or tomorrow and see how you feel. See if it helps you to kind of come out of that freeze state. And again, all of the exercises that we talk about here are meant to be used repeatedly. If they work for you, continue to use them day after day. Add on to that toolkit, and that is going to help you to regain your life, regain your mobility, and regulate your nervous system over time. If you did enjoy today's video, I would love it if you would comment below 1 thing that helps you feel safe, whether it's something that you've learned here or some new tip and trick that you've learned somewhere else. Feel free to share that here. And if you really want to be cool, you can share it in our community, which I've linked below. There is a free section where we do talk all week long and have little prompts where we start to discuss more about our nervous systems and how to get out of the freeze state, amongst other things. And if you did enjoy this content, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening from. And we will see you in the next video, guys.